Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Ray the Flying Squirrel here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos, as you probably expected me at this point in time. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Super Mario Bros. Wonder for the Nintendo Switch. So last time, we've essentially managed to complete some levels in Journey Forms within World 1, which appears to be, of course, Pipe Rock Plateau, and overall we actually did a pretty good progression so far. So today for this video is about the fact that we're going to be continuing exploring for the forms of Pipe Rock Plateau, so just in case we can guarantee to get ourselves not only the rest of the remaining of the forms of those Wonder Seeds, but hopefully we can come across into other levels in the future. So because of that though, yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that I'm pretty sure we're now on to 50% done. For the sake of the forms of Pipe Rock Plateau, before we move on to the next portion of the game. But I suppose no matter what though, it's about the fact that we should probably save that particular topic if we keep on exploring for the forms of this particular world in mind. So anyway, so let's just go ahead and check out with the forms of this poplin right here. And it looks like no matter what though, we can't to actually bust out this rock unless... Oh, I was off by 2 flower coins left. Well, at least to be more specifically, just trying to reach that particular 10 flower coins amount, so I can to actually spend on that. So, I suppose no matter what though, it's about the fact that it looks like we're actually getting pretty close to the palace, of all things. So, yeah, relatively speaking though, I believe those palaces are basically kind of like the equivalents to the castle levels from the likes of in the previous games. So, I suppose we should probably to get into that in a moment, because, relatively speaking though, there is actually one of those badge challenges that we can to participate in on, so I suppose we should probably focus on that first, before we're to actually hop into this particular pipe down below. So in some cases though, here we go on to badge challenge right here, in some cases wall climb jump 1. So it looks like no matter what though, we're about to learn the next ability, which appears to be wall climb jump. Where basically, take a notice from the likes of the actual wall jump ability from the likes of Mega Man X, except no matter what though, you can jump twice on that particular wall, depending on what wall you jump onto. So relatively speaking though, is about the fact that this particular badge challenge is actually pretty self-explanatory, although eventually later on though it gets a little bit more difficult as you progress. So relatively speaking though, is about the fact that again, I will promise you guys I will to show off some of these badges quite a few times. So even then though, exponentially, some of them are actually kind of useful, while some of them are actually kind of useless. So but even then though, we'll get some more details onto that. So, and after that though, we can pretty much expect to get ourselves, what else? Yet another Wonder Seed. So, there's going to be a lot of Wonder Seeds to collect in this game. So, oh yeah, I should also mention about this as well, is that since that we've already experienced the, actually gonna think about it, there's actually that one in particular character left, in terms of the forms of a normal style of gameplay, in terms of the forms of the playable characters department for Super Mario Bros. Wonder. So as a result, let's get into the forms of, well, let's just say, since we're now going to be experiencing the underground section, so in some cases though, let's go and switch over to Toad Edge right now, so we can pretty much gonna have to show journey forms of that particular action and stuff. So anyways, let's dive right into... let's go for this level next, which appears to be by the forms of Angry Spikes with... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Angry Spikes and Sinking Pipes. So, yeah, I will admit though right away, it's been 2 days ago since I actually have last played this for sure. And I apologize for my commentary because it's a little bit slightly awkward sometimes. Although, there's one thing I would classify for mentioning about this right from the start though, is that ever since Journey Forms have been a couple of weeks ago, out of nowhere, that we finally managed to get a chance to see one of those particular events that has already been happened. If for those of you who ever played Super Mario Run recently, is that relatively speaking, is that the Super Mario Bros. Wonder event that somehow managed to take place recently. Although keep this in mind, is about the fact that it only happens in Journey Forms within Toad Rally mode. So I'm afraid to tell you is that you can't able to actually come across into a Wonder Flower during the course of the forms of any other modes, ranging from the story mode and as well as the forms of Remix 10 mode. So it only exists in during the forms of Toad Rally mode. So, and for what I've experienced so far, during the course of the Wonder event, for the sake of the forms of Super Mario Run, it's actually pretty swell, if I have to say so for myself. Mind you, no matter what though, it's been ages since I actually have last played Super Mario Run. Well, that's just mainly because I'm not exactly a huge mobile gamer or anything else like that, unlike the forms of how it does it for Nintendo Switch gaming and stuff like that, as well as from that. Also say applies with the handheld stuff as well, that I'm also into. Oh yeah, I should also mention about this as well, keep this in mind. I'm afraid, for the sake of the forms of this year in 2024, will mark the forms of some upsetting moments for not only for the 3DS, but also for the Wii U, as well as the Xbox 360. So because of that, you know exactly what I mean, is that the online features will be dead, for the sake of the forms of the 3DS and the Wii U for Nintendo Network account. So, yeah, it's kind of a bummer though, especially considering for the fact that we all do miss those days, especially considering for the fact that I'm pretty sure most of you people out there are pretty much gonna miss out on, for the sake of the forms of experiencing online play, for not only for the likes of Splatoon 1, but also say applies with the forms of, I get the strong sense of feeling there might be something down there, because I almost assumed that was going to be a bottomless pit, but sure enough, it isn't. So in some cases though, we ended up going to this massive fall. And it pretty much leads us to the next Wonder Flower. So, I believe it's another one of those musical numbers. So, spiky dance number. So, yeah, basically all we have to do in this part is that you need to be able to try to avoid as many of those spike balls as you can by spikes. So, yeah, you can probably expect what this is going. So, yeah, I just get the weird deja vu all of a sudden when it comes to not realizing about the fact that apparently this game is going to be heavily utilizes the forms of musical performances sometimes, which I must say though, that is actually pretty satisfying, at least as far as I'm aware. Well, keep this in mind though, is about the fact that we're still in World 1, so either way though, let's go ahead and obtain the Wonder Seed right here. So now we're done with that, and now we can able to get the heck out of here. So, anyways though, so yeah, it's kind of unfortunate for if you really want able to experience online play for not only on the Wii U before it's too late, but also with the 3DS as well. Well, it's gonna be pretty emotional, and during at some point in April sometime, we're not exactly sure when exactly is it going to be shutting down for this exact date, but I suppose time will tell. So in some cases though, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of a bummer thing going on. So anyway, so now we're done with that, and let's go ahead and move on to the next level, but this time we're going to be selecting a different character, which appears to be Yoshi. So technically speaking though, it's about the fact that since in Super Mario Run, basically though, we can normally try to able to take control of Yoshi all by himself. So, in some cases though, Swamp Pipe Crawl. So, relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that, well, apparently though, Yoshi, as far as this game in particular goes, kind of think about it, his gameplay style is basically like a combination of not only Super Mario Run, but also with the forms of Yoshi's Island as well. Because as you can see, that Yoshi can able to actually eat up enemies and use to eat the enemies to able to send out the projectiles back at certain enemies. You know, very similar to the forms of how it does it on Yoshi's Island, except the noticeable differences being is that, well, potentially speaking though, is that you don't need to worry about just trying to look after baby Mario the whole time. Although relatively speaking though, is about the fact that I'm pretty sure his voice is actually like based off from the sake of the forms of the current voice of Yoshi, as opposed to the forms of a New Super Mario Bros. Wii, alongside with New Super Mario Bros. U as well, including New Super Luigi U as well, that for whatever reasons that Yoshi's voice is actually heavily borrowed from Super Mario World. So, relatively speaking though, I very appreciate it for the fact that at least Yoshi managed able to get his proper new voice for the sake of the forms of that particular point's worth noting for. So, and also keep this in mind though, is that 7 playable characters are usually act out as like normal traditional play styles when it comes to like Mario, Luigi, and Peach, Daisy, 2 different colored Toads, both yellow and blue, and even Toadette as well. So relatively speaking though, unlike in New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, that Toadette, she's no longer going to become Peachette. So because of that, I don't think there's going to be any Super Crowns anytime soon. So because of that, yeah, at the very least, we don't need to worry about the forms of the lack of, well, easiness all side of things. So, now I suppose I should probably get into the actual topic of when it comes to the forms of playing as Yoshi, as you can tell. Basically though, unlike in any other characters in the game, Yoshi, alongside with the forms of another playable character, which appears to be Nabbit, I'm afraid to tell you is that Yoshi cannot able to actually obtain power-ups. Like, he can't able to actually obtain a Fire Flower or the upcoming power-ups, including by the forms of the Elephant Fruit. So as a result, I'm afraid to tell you that Yoshi cannot transform into an elephant. So, kind of unfortunate though, especially concerning for the fact that I was really looking forward to see how that's going to turn out. But as it turns out, is that Yoshi's, especially noticeable for Nabbit as well, those 5 playable characters are more accurately the easy mode in this game, which is especially noticeable concerning for the fact that if you couldn't tell, Yoshi is not able to actually lose a power-up, or to be more accurate though, every time when you touch an enemy, basically though, Yoshi doesn't seem able to get hit or take damage, but rather you're able to get pushed or knocked back. So because of that though, yeah, it's kind of weird to able to actually go for this decision, because unlike the forms of how it does it on Super Mario Run, where basically though, if you play as Yoshi in that game, basically though is that once you grow in size, likely if you somehow obtain the Super Mushroom, and then once you're done with that, and then obviously if you get hit by certain hazards or enemies, basically you grow down to small size. At least depending on the forms of the patch update, unlike the forms of how it does it back in 2016, when it first launched on some smartphone devices, is that basically though, yeah, every time when Yoshi just touched something a bit sharper or dangerous, basically though is about the fact that you die instantly. So, and it actually costs one of your bubbles as far as I'm aware. So, anyways though, here's the forms of another stage thing we're going to be able to actually jump right into, and that's what appears to be the KO arenas, where basically though we need to kill all sorts of enemies, or just trying to able to defeat certain enemies as much as you can. So just to ensure for the fact that, keep this in mind, we have to deal with a time limit right here. So every time whenever you do manage to able to defeat certain enemies, then you move on to the next section, at least as far as I'm concerned. And relatively speaking though, also keep this in mind, since that we're going to be playing as Yoshi for the majority of the forms of some stages, but as you can tell, we've now switched over to a red color Yoshi, which it behaves exactly like the forms of how it does it for green Yoshi, except with a different color. So, yeah, there's nothing else to it. So, because of that though, is that potentially speaking now is just how the fact that Yoshi can able to perform a flutter jump ever since in Yoshi's Island, and on top of that, he can also eat up enemies. However, he can't able to actually create Yoshi's eggs this time around though, so keep this in mind. So, anyways though, a few things I want to explain for this point today is, potentially speaking though, is that today's date of course is the 3rd of January today, in some cases in 2024 today. Suffice to say, at this point in time, is that I don't suppose there's anything else we can probably able to explain any of these for the time being. Well, at least in terms of the forms of some other aspects from now on. And I get the strong feeling I don't think it's possible for me to able to actually get the 3rd and the final flower coin on this particular KO arena, because I was a little bit too slow on at some points. So as a result, I ended up getting not only those two 10 flower coins, but also with the forms of the Wonder Seed. So, yeah, because as you can tell is that these particular stages like this are basically time-based. So, yeah, if you're too slow, then you have to restart the stage if you really want to go for a true 100% completion. So, in some cases, KO Arena, Pipe Rock Rumble, that's the name of this particular stage anyway, so... Oh, and also another thing I should probably want to able to explain about this particular stuff as well, is that out of nowhere, When it comes to the forms of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, at least to be more specifically for its DLC department, is that potentially speaking though, until when it gets to the point until the next couple of days, to be more accurate though with the forms of 8 days remaining, is that, well, potentially speaking though, that there's going to be an epilogue is going to be fully announced, and potentially speaking though is about the fact that I'm not exactly sure how to explain any of these things, because I know for a fact I still haven't been able to actually play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because to me, at the end of the day, it feels like the visuals is actually going to get a lot more downgraded and also worse at the same time in my opinion, which is especially noticeable concerning for a fact I know a lot of people complain about the forms of the performance issues once again, at least in terms of the forms of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, when it comes to likely for its DLC combined. So, yeah, it seems no matter what though, is that apparently there was actually the last bits of content that's going to be coming until 8 days time, which appears to be, well, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the Hidden Treasures of Area Zero epilogue is going to be a thing. So, and kind of thinking about it though, it's going to take place sometime on the 11th of January, which is also around that time where basically, I can't even believe by saying this, is about the fact that we've almost getting close towards the end of Sonic Prime. So because of that, yeah, and I cannot wait to see how the ending conclusion is going to play out to be for Sonic Prime, which is especially concerning for the fact that I almost assume about the fact that the one of the Chaos Counselors is going to be one of the major villains, but as it turns out, there's actually a plot twist for some particular reason. Although, mind you, I'm probably not going to spoil things too much about it, but I'm sure most of you already seen during the forms of the finale episode for the sake of the forms of Season 2 in mind. But then again, though, it's just about the fact it's been a couple of months since we've last seen Sonic Prime, ever since in sometime in last year's July. So, yeah, about time, I guess. Especially concerning for the fact that it's been like, what, 6 months or so since we've actually last got ourselves the last couple of episodes for the sake of the forms of Sonic Prime. So, oh, and by the way, something's worth noting for is that every time whenever you do manage to re-grab the already collected, you know, the 10 flower coin, I believe it actually gives you a lesser amount of those flower coins if you somehow obtain one of these flower coins potentially, because I think it actually gives you 3, likely also for the sake of the forms if you somehow want able to collect those again. But anyways, there's Captain Toad right here, so we can pretty much expect to be able to get ourselves even more flower coins, so that should be enough until we're able to decide to actually access to another section during the course of Pipe Rock Plateau. So, yeah, it seems to be more specifically, we've almost done with this entire world. Although, then again though, like I said before, is that the actual worlds themselves are going to get a lot more lengthy and longer this time around. So I wouldn't expect able to do a full world in one part, just because, again, this game heavily encourages you to do a lot of exploration. So, anyways, let's talk to Poplin right here, and able to give him 10 flower coins, and exponentially we can now able to proceed to the next part in Journey Forms of Pipe Rock Plateau. So, and I believe we've only got about 3 more playable characters left until we're basically done showing every single playable characters of how this game actually has to offer. Although keep this in mind though, is about the fact that, like I mentioned this before, that when it comes to like multiple colored Yoshis, including Nabbit, if you couldn't tell, that those playable characters are easy mode in this game. So anyway, so now let's go in and switch over to a different colored Yoshi, this time being yellow Yoshi, onto Roller Cooper Derby. So in some cases though, I really love the fact that the actual themes themselves is actually super unique as well. Although sure, we might still able to stumble across into typical themes here and there, likely also for its grasslands, deserts, you name it. But I love the fact that in these couple of levels ahead, that we might able to come across into something new. Like for instance, is that in this particular level's case, is that the actual setting is going to take place in autumn season. So, pretty cool though, especially concerning for the fact that I'm pretty sure that newer Super Mario Bros. Wii back in 2013 made by some fans out there already did manage to able to get the actual autumn setting, so yeah, it seems pretty cool though. So Oh yeah, something's worth noting for is about the fact, as you can tell, that we still haven't utilized the forms of an elephant transformation for some time, because like I said before, it's kind of unfortunate that Yoshi does not turn into an elephant, and that could be also applies for Nabbit as well. But luckily though, if you really want to experience certain levels for not only for Yoshi, but also for Nabbit as well, is that luckily you can still able to touch the actual Wonder Flower, which as a result it does some very strange effects for the sake of time. So yeah, you pretty much get the idea of what that's gonna turn out to be. So but yeah, with that being said though, is about the fact that there's also the another thing I want to classify for mentioning about this as well. As you probably already know, ever since in yesterday, is that both Sonic and Knuckles are already working on Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze recently. So relatively speaking though, it's actually likely two different 2D platformer games that we are tackling through at the moment. So yeah, it's kind of cool to able to actually start off the entire year, especially concerning for the fact that, like what Sonic and Knuckles has already mentioned about this before, that exponentially is that Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake should be approaching soon. So because of that, still I'm looking forward to it though, and I'm sure we will able to do that Let's Play of that particular game sometime. Although we're not exactly sure when exactly, but it might not be a guarantee for day one, mainly because of multiple factors, mainly due to the forms of our 13th anniversary coming up for the Maxi Toys YouTube channel department, and on top of that, depending on what how much the length that is when it comes to not only for Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but also with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze as well. Well, I'm not exactly sure what's gonna be happening for the sake of the Phones of the Weekends department, but then again though, we're not gonna spoil things too much, especially concerning for the fact that still, this is the beginning of the Phones of 2024 after all. So yeah, you pretty much expect how this is gonna turn out to be, So as you can tell, it's about the fact that we now need to able to collect those Wonder tokens, at least as far as I'm aware. So if you manage to grab all 5 of those Wonder tokens, then obviously the Wonder Seeds will appear. So relatively speaking, think of like the forms of obtaining those Silver Stars from not only from Super Mario 64 DS, but also with the forms of Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, and even with the forms of the Moon Shards for the sake of the forms of Super Mario Odyssey, that if you manage to able to obtain all 5 of them, then obviously you will able to actually get one of those important collectibles. So oh, and something's worth noting for, like I said before, is that there's also the gold flag icon, where basically you have to touch at the very top of the falls of the flagpole, and once you've done so, then you should able to get yourselves a gold flag. So yeah, very similar to the forms of how it does it on Super Mario 3D Land and Super Mario 3D World, which is necessary if you really want to fully 100% everything in this entire game. So anyways, let's head back into this level again, because I get the strong feeling I'm actually missing the forms of that particular 10 flower coin. So, although I will admit though right away, is that much like the puzzle pieces from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, as what both Sonic and Knuckles have already mentioned about, that I believe, oh, okay, I completely forgot about the forms of that propeller flower thingy right there. So I will admit though right away, is that trying to find those specific 10 flower coins is actually a lot more harder than I thought it was. Although they basically is kind of like the equivalent to not only the star medals, but also with the green stars and star coins from any other Mario games up to that point. Although, relatively speaking, though, is about the fact I'm not exactly sure if it's possible that I can able to actually leave the level. So I'm pretty certain is that much like the star coins in mind, I have to finish the level rather than just leave the level, which, kind of thinking about it though, it feels like exactly the same treatment as the forms of Sonic Advance 3 with this ridiculous chow hunting system. So, but at the very least though, I can able to actually dash through this for the most part, even though despite I got hit most of the time. But either way, that pretty much does it for this level. So, pretty cool level though, especially concerning I just love the actual the background theme on this particular stage, all things considered. Especially concerning about the fact that, well, I just really love the autumn nature for its entire look of it though. Anyway, before we move along, there is actually not only another badge challenge, but it's also with the forms of another break time segment. So in some cases though, let's go and get on to the forms of the next badge challenge, which appears to be Parachute Cap 1. So now we can able to show off what the parachute cap does. So basically though, it's about the fact that you have to hold down the, I would say an R bumper, at least as far as I'm aware, and basically you can able to glide with your cap for a shorter period of time. And basically though, it kind of feels a bit of a similar thing as the forms of maybe likely or so. Honestly have no idea, because it's been like a couple of moments ago since I was trying to referencing something, especially concerning for the fact that at this point in time is that you know, we're trying to able to actually focus on, you know what I'm saying, so far we're going to be focusing on 2 games at a time so far when it comes to the forms of doing Let's Plays department. So either way though, oh, and every time when you finish the level, you're able to actually restore one of the Poplin's houses. So relatively speaking though, yeah, it feels a little bit more differently than the forms of the other 2D Mario games for sure, which is especially noticeable concerning for the fact that at this point in time, we don't need to worry about just trying to able to collect new Super Mario Bros. Anymore, because obviously no matter what though, yeah, you get the idea. Break time, pop up, hoppo. So yeah, it's basically it's like a puzzle kind of segment right here, and I think I need to act fast with this reaction timing for its springs to able to try to utilize with. So, and there we go, problem solved, and it should be super duper easy, you know. Alright, I believe for the most part, I don't think we can probably able to actually tackle through one of the levels just yet though, mainly for instance with the forms of that one of those trickier levels just yet, because I get the strong feeling is that if you really want to progress, basically though, we need to able to only use not only Mario, but also with Luigi, Peach, Daisy, 2 colored Toads, or Toadette, in order to able to actually just to get to the point where sometimes it's about the fact that sometimes if you come across into certain situations where basically though it's about the fact that if you find a regular goal, basically though sometimes the game likes to trick you at one point for able to not realize that the actual progression is not exactly existent. So in some cases though, yeah, we'll try and explain more about it if we get into the later stages. So no, I'm so sick of getting those duplicates already, which I know for a fact is definitely a little bit common, but relatively speaking though, we actually got quite a few newer ones. So, but there's also the equivalent of this particular shop later down the road, which thankfully though, it does manage to fix, you know, kind of think about it, it will help you a lot for its progression-wise. So, yeah, we'll save that particular level for later. So for now, let's go ahead and use the Wonder Seeds to able to, well, actually access to the first palace in the game. So, I mean, I get the strong feeling with the forms the similar vibe as in Zelda 2 for a little bit, although thankfully though, the difficulty is nowhere near as bad as the forms of Zelda 2, so, alright, Pipe Rock Plateau Palace. So, relatively speaking though, is that, yeah, these stages are very similar to the forms of experiencing the castle levels from the previous Mario games, except, well, no matter what though, it's about the fact that it looks like every once in a while is that certain wonder effects comes into play. So, yeah, you probably get the idea of how that's been represented for. So, anyways, oh jeez, those Hammer Bros. Well, thankfully though, we can able to have much more fluid controls, so we can pretty much, dang it, I somehow didn't pay attention to that. So, whoops. So, there's my first step for the playthrough. I'm guessing I wasn't hesitating well enough for able to actually participating for the sake of the forms of how Yoshi's Flutter Jump actually plays out to be. So, I mean, sure, I might try to get a little bit more accustomed to that. So, because of that though, I'm still pretty much used to taking control of not only with Mario, but also with Luigi and the other gang as well. To be more accurate though, 7 playable characters with its normal type of gameplay style. So, and also we've stumbled across into those familiar blocks ever since in, well, relatively speaking though, since Super Mario World, I guess. But either way though, that's all I can really think about this for the sake of time. So, yeah, I have to keep on like going back and forth at one point, because there might be a couple of times if I somehow missing something. Well, that's what backtracking decides to come in, but even then, I suppose it doesn't bother me too much, I don't think. So, I believe if we go to this pipe, then obviously we can able to obtain the Wonder Flower, so... And I believe the Wonder Flower can cause these pipes to able to crush you, so... Yeah, we got to watch out to not get crushed, so... well, relatively speaking, is about the fact that when it comes to play as Yoshi's and Nabbit, for that matter, obviously if you did get crushed, then obviously it still counts as a death. So, yeah, you got to watch out for that, including fallout as well, for the sake of the forms. If you accidentally fell off the stage or something, and I get the horrible feeling I don't think I can able to actually access that particular 10 flower coin over there, because I do need something like a shell, or even to be more accurate though, I need an elephant transformation to able to actually break those blocks. So yeah, it's a bit unfortunate I can't do that anyway, so I suppose we'll be back for that until later, I guess. So just to ensure no matter what though is about the fact that once we finish this entire stage, then obviously no matter what though, oh, there's only one Wonder Seed in this particular stage, so kind of interesting though. So, and I found it's a little bit cooler is that it does have multiple checkpoints on certain stages this time around, as opposed to only just one, for the sake of the forms of the majority of the stages from the likes of New Super Mario Bros., as well as New Super Mario Bros. Wii, New Super Mario Bros. 2, and even New Super, yeah, you get the idea. So, yeah, we've met again, Bowser Jr., ever since in New Super Mario Bros. U, to be more accurate, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, with all that particular two games combined into one. Although, luckily though, you're no longer on the forms of that particular Junior Koopa Clown card. So in some cases though, you're now walking on foot, and oh no, oh wait a second. Holy macaroni, he somehow changes. And I believe, for this particular first battle with the forms of Bowser Jr., I believe in the first phase, we obviously going to be dealing with Bowser Jr. one-on-one for the actual normal-sized counterparts and such. But once we get to the second phase of the fight, as you can tell, we are now huge, whilst meanwhile for Bowser Jr., he's actually a lot smaller. So, now I believe since we did somehow manage to hit him for the second time, we now on to the third and the final phase of the battle, where basically though Bowser Jr. is now huge, whilst meanwhile for us, we're now extremely small as an ant. So, yeah, seems to be more specifically though is that, oh jeez, okay, but sure enough we already deal with him, so there goes the first boss right here. So, sure, it's self-explanatory and all that stuff, and it's also pretty easy as well, so. Then of course Bowser Jr. gets away again, and it looks like we stumbled across into, oh goodness gracious, I've never seen like this before. We have the Royal Seed. So, I'm guessing the Royal Seeds is kind of like the equivalent to the forms of the Grand Stars for both Super Mario Galaxy as well as Super Mario Galaxy 2, and as also with the forms of the equivalent to Multi-Moon for the sake of Super Mario Odyssey. So, now I believe once you complete the forms of certain palaces throughout the game, the palace is fully restored, and we can move along to the next portion of the game. So, yeah. Suffice to say, despite what the forms of the first step of the playthrough so far, I'm guessing it's probably because I need to get a lot of practice for the sake of the timing aspect for the flutter jump system. So, but apart from those side things though, well, unless if you're trying to play the game in multiplayer co-op, likely or so one player can take control of either Mario, Luigi, etc, etc, that at the very least there is actually another option for you, that you can actually hop on to Yoshi's back. That obviously plays pretty much exactly like in Super Mario World, and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and New Super Mario Bros. U, where, usually relatively speaking, you now have the option to able to either jump off Yoshi's back, or potentially speaking, you can able to, like, well, you get the idea for this point, because I know for a fact it's been 2 days since we've last played this, because, been busy playing through other games recently, likely Super Mario RPG, which I'm almost getting close to finishing up on my own time for a bit. And, like I said before, I'm really looking forward to able to try out some other new games coming out for it for the majority of 2024, which I'm sure that both Sonic and Knuckles have also mentioned about this as well, that I'm super excited for able to not only going back into those nostalgia memories, but with the forms of much more better visuals, but also with the forms of some new obscure games from time to time, and even especially noticeable, we might come across into new surprises here and there. Oh, something's worth noting for is that, sadly though, Freedom Planet 2 for the Switch has been officially delayed at some point during this year in 2024, because it was originally going to be releasing at some point in December 2023, which is last year. Well, to be more accurate though, about a month ago. But for whatever reason though, is that multiple platform versions of Freedom Planet 2, Switch version included, is that potentially speaking of, that game has been officially been delayed and during that some time in this year in particular. I'm not exactly sure when exactly, but even I know it did say sometime in spring, so... Ah, I see. Okay. So I believe what the Royal Seeds can do is that since we ended up in this next environment, as far as I'm aware, called Pedal Isle, where basically those about the fact that if you bring the Royal Seed over, it actually disintegrates the forms of that particular Piranha Cloud. Okay, that seems kind of legitimate. So I believe since we've already taken down one of them, so I believe we've only got 5 left. So, meaning about the fact that we need to go through multiple islands and stuff like that, or in some cases though, one huge connective world. Something is very similar to the forms of how it does it for, well, let's just say New Super Mario Bros. U a little bit, but it's also with the forms of maybe Super Mario 3D World as well, because obviously no matter what though, it's about the fact that thanks to those clear pipes and stuff, some stuff like that. So, yeah, everything else will be pretty much expected at that point, so... Oh, and also another thing too is about the fact that I, obviously seen some couple of parts for the sake of the forms of Cap King 74's playthrough, for the sake of the forms of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix so far, and, unfortunately though, he does manage to stumble across into a copyright problem, during the course of the forms of one of those parts earlier, which is kind of unfortunate though, which is especially noticeable concerning every once in a while is that there's going to be a lot of copyright strikes at one point, at least depending on certain situations, you know? So, with that being said though, is about the fact that it looks like we now ended up in this next environment, like I said before, is that we ended up on Petal Isles. So, yeah, it feels a little bit more of a tropical setting more than anything, although keep this in mind though, is about the fact that, well, as you can tell, we are now going to be able to be playing as the, well, let's just say, the 12th and the final playable character, which appears to be Nabbit. And of course, if you ever experienced Nabbit, ever since in not only New Super Luigi U, but also with New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, basically, Nabbit is incredibly broken, just like the forms of how it does it on New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, including New Super Luigi U as well. And what do I mean by this? Well, obviously, no matter what though, much like Yoshi, every time when you dare touch an enemy, and also come across into certain hazards at one point, obviously that you didn't able to actually get hit by in small size or something, so... Anyways though, I think what I'm gonna do is that I'm actually gonna be able to be doing the last 2 levels for now. So in some cases though, here we go with badge challenge number 3, which appears to be Dolphin Kick 1. So now we can able to actually perform a dolphin kick. So this means they'll make things a lot easier to do some swimming controls. So yeah, it's actually pretty swell though, especially concerning for the fact that I get the strong feeling this is another one of those emphasis about the fact that Nabbit also has a new voice actor as well. So yeah, there's quite a lot of new voiceovers in this game this time around. So whilst compared to the previous Mario games, it's all pretty standard stuff for the most part. So but either way though, some people might not like the new voice actors as much. At least it kind of reminds me of a similar fashion as the forms have been back in 2010, where they managed able to feature Sonic's new voice casts. So, at least ever since in Sonic Free Riders, they somehow firstly introduced that particular kind of stuff. So, and it will continue that tradition for the sake of the forms of the later games to come, including by the forms of the most recent, smartphone, likely Apple Arcade game called Sonic Dream Team. So, despite the fact that I just really wish if that game will get ported over to other major systems, but it's pretty difficult to tell at this point. So, anyway, so let's go ahead and finish this particular challenge right here. So, obviously we do need to able to realize that we need to able to time our button presses into able to just do a dolphin kick. Although luckily I can able to mash the trigger buttons as much as I can. So, and I just realized it's about the fact that much like Super Mario Odyssey, that depending on what world you go into, those Wonder Seeds are actually in a different color depending on what world you go into. So, for instance, in Journey Forms of in World 1, it appears to be, of course, Pipe Rock Plateau. Those Wonder Seeds are colored blue. whilst in the Forms Within Petal Isles, as you can tell, we've now stumbled across into an orange Wonder Seed. So, anyways, Leaping Smackerel, I think is what it says anyway. So, in some cases though, we actually come across into yet another new enemy types that is actually introduced in this game. So, yeah, you get the idea about that. Also, very much like the Forms of how it does it are not only New Super Mario Bros. For the DS, but also with New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the 3DS. And even let's not forget ourselves with the forms of Super Mario 3D Land, and especially noticeable with Super Mario 3D World. And let's not forget ourselves with the Bowser's Fury as well, is that every once in a while, as you can tell, we somehow manage to get ourselves our item inventory box. So meaning about the fact that every time whenever you do manage to grab a spare power-up, likely, for example, if I became Mario at one point, then basically though, if I come across into an elephant power-up, to be more specifically an elephant fruit, and basically I can able to turn into an elephant if I wanted to, and then basically though, if I come across into yet another elephant fruit, is that allows me to able to keep my spare elephant fruit power-up in my inventory item storage. So, yeah, that will come in handy though, especially concerning for the fact that until when the game starts to get a little bit difficult later on though, then trust me what I'm saying is going to be pretty useful. So I get the feeling in this Wonder effect, in this stage in particular, once again we need to collect all these Wonder tokens once again, so hopefully we should be able to have not too many issues or anything else like that. So, oh yeah, I should also mention about this as well, is about the fact that apparently there was that strange news has been going on, is that there was an actor called Jonathan Majors, that he was actually going to be a voice of Kang, for the likes of the films of the previous Marvel projects for the time. Likely, for instance, ever since in during the films have been, well, let's just say in Loki Season 1 and Season 2, as well as from that, you know, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Spoiler alert for those who have not seen the film yet, although despite it's pretty rubbish in comparison to me though, mainly because of this very weird, odd design choice for the sake of the forms of one of the characters that is actually in there. But I digress. So, yeah, it seems to be more specifically is that Marvel Studios actually has fired Jonathan Majors, because apparently Jonathan Majors has been found guilty of assault in a third degree and guilty of harassment. So, and at this point in time is that the Avengers, the Kang Dynasty is now being reportedly now referring back onto, or being referred to as Avengers 5. So, meaning about the fact that we're now going to be receiving a title called Avengers 5 from now on. Well, I suppose that seems to be the case, because we've already got 4 of those Avengers films, as far as I'm aware, from likely one of those films in 2012 and one of them in 2015 and another one in 2018 and 2019. So yeah, I suppose with that being said though, we'll switch back to Mario and we'll get the endings of this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, is that we're going back onto Pipe Rock Plateau and hopefully clean things up for the majority of this world. So I'll see you guys then. Later fellas.